This is the Less Insurance Dependence podcast show with my good friend Gary Takas and myself, Narain Arul Raja.
We appreciate your listenership, your time, and most of all, we appreciate your intention to reduce insurance dependence in your practice. Our goal is to provide information that will help you successfully reduce insurance dependence and convert your practice into a thriving and profitable dental practice that provides you with personal, professional, and financial satisfaction.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Less Insurance Dependence podcast show. This is Narain, your co-host. Today's topic is how to deal with 1 or 2 star reviews. Before we jump into today's topic, I have a quick announcement. The next masterclass, actually it's a repeat masterclass, is 6 steps to successfully resign from PPO plans. 6 steps to successfully resign from PPO plans. We did this approximately 6 months ago and it was sold out, so we are bringing it back. It's going to be on June 17th, a Thursday at 7 to 10 p.m., 3 hours of CE. Every single masterclass Gary has done has sold out. We don't expect anything different happening with this one. So if you're interested, please sign up and look forward to seeing you there. Now let's jump on to our podcast, how to deal with 1 or 2 star reviews. As a marketing person, who runs a marketing agency, this is a question that I get from a lot of our clients, and I'm sure Gary has experienced the same thing. Gary, what are your thoughts?
You know, Naren, I think we need to start with just kind of the blunt reality here, and that is that it's likely for any dentist out there to experience a stray negative review. And the problem with it, I think, happens at the emotional level, Naren, because at an emotional level, they're devastating. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It feels devastating when you read this review. Because dentists put their heart and soul into their practice, and then when someone pipes up online and kind of throws darts at you, it hurts, and it can really affect doctors on the emotional level. But if you're dealing with enough people, the reality is you're going to get a stray negative review. And here's where I want to start with this. And this maybe will help address that emotional issue. And that is that, now this is very contrarian, but I want you to stick with me on this. A stray negative review can actually work in your favor. It actually work in your favor. Why? So you might think, Gary, no, you should see what they said. No, it's not going to work in my favor. Hey, if you have dozens and dozens and dozens and even hundreds of positive reviews, and there's a stray one in there, it simply adds reality to the review process. I mean, if all you have is 5-star reviews, a cynical person could think, did your mother write all those reviews? No, we know that's not possible. But a stray negative review, someone reading it might just file it away, in the gray matter of their brain and say, you can't please them all. Especially if the stray negative review kind of takes on the tone of a rant. Aaron, you've seen rants.
Yes.
Someone reading that after they've read dozens of positive reviews actually is already on your side, and they're thinking, that no good you-know-what who wrote that negative review can actually work in your favor. Now, remember that a certain percentage of negative reviews are actually spurious reviews. They are not from your patient. They're simply someone trying to throw mud at you.
Yeah. Two thoughts come to mind, Gary, based on what you're just saying. One is the serenity prayer. Let me read it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. And I think this is an example where this really applies. What I mean by that is, if the person goes on a rant, a lot of times they probably would have violated Google's guidelines. So one of the things we do for clients is we tell Google, hey, they violated guideline point 2.6. Can you please remove the review? Google is like, no problem. They take it off. So that's the thing you can change, right? So some cases, I don't want to say every case, but some cases we are able to get Google or, the platform the reviews on is to get rid of it. And in many other cases, it is what it is. And so knowing that you can't change it and accepting it, but rather choosing to respond to it. I know Gary is going to talk more about this. I think is the critical thing, because I agree. Dentists are perfectionists, and when they see this totally untrue piece of nonsense on a website that's so nasty that they can't even see who this person is, the way it's written and so forth, it riles you up because you take your work personally and you give all into it. But it's just the nature of the world we live in. Anybody can say anything online, and First Amendment, etc., etc. You have to live with it. I know in Europe that's not the case. There's a rule called GDPR, and in Europe, negative reviews have to be taken down because the law there is not for First Amendment. It's not for freedom of speech.
It's the Wild West in North America. It's the Wild West.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I mean by that, and I'm just going to be very direct with our listeners, a fair number of the negative reviews for dental offices come from two sources.
Yes.
Two sources. Other dentists who simply want to throw mud at someone who's experiencing some success, and disgruntled former team members. That's where a significant number of the negative reviews come from. Now, let's talk about what to do about them. And I think it's useful to always, first of all, let's look at a review, a negative review that actually has merit. Naren, that actually has merit. It's probably not going to be a 1 or 2 star, but it might be a 3 star. I personally think anything less than a 5 star is not good, right? We want nothing but 5-star reviews. But what if someone said, hey, I've had good past experiences with this dental office, but today they were running behind, so I'm going to give them 3 stars. To me, that's a reasonable review. It's not the one we want, Naren, but that type of, I'm going to call it a negative review, is reasonable. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
And now you and your team are masters at this. How would your team respond to that? They'd put a response to that. How would they respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with HIPAA because, you don't want to say anything personal about the patient or anything like that. So it's something along the lines of, we really appreciate your feedback. Thank you for sharing it. We'll review this internally, and we would appreciate if you would call us back, and we would, do what we can to, something along those lines.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
And I would apologize. Sorry for letting you down today. Our goal is to be an on-time practice today, and we let you down. Thanks to your feedback, we're going to be working on this to improve. And again, much appreciation for letting us know. Anybody that reads that and reads your reply, I think we've just won a fan.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, wow, that's a reasonable response. Can't please everyone, but that's a reasonable response. So I think one of the...
and sometimes it could be genuine. Like I have seen this. Like sometimes people have to wait 30 minutes to see the doctor, and it's not just one-off, but it's a chronic issue because you keep hearing those reviews 3, 4, 5 times. In those cases, like the Serenity Prayer says, you can change it. You can now figure out what can you do so that people don't have to wait 30 mints.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Is that if there's a pattern in the negative reviews, use that for improvement. Try to take the defensiveness off of your sentiments when you look at it. Don't be defensive, and ask yourself, is that legitimate? And if you're starting to see a pattern of it, something may be going on in your practice that you're not familiar with, and now you can correct it. So, a negative review could actually be, the impetus to make a positive change in your practice on something that's recurring. But now, what if we get to one of those reviews that we know is not factual. For example, this happened with a client of mine. The patient complained about an orthodontic service that was done in the practice, and the practice doesn't provide any orthodontic service.
Yeah.
So it was clearly slinging mud at the practice. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody's slinging mud at the practice, and you think it's,
in this case, it wasn't a matter of opinion.
Yeah,
This
it's a
office
fact.
does
So I
not
mean,
provide
maybe
any
the way I would say
orthodontic services.
We say, thank you for the feedback. We do not provide orthodontic services. Perhaps you are confusing us with some other practice. If there's anything else we can help you with, please call this number.
You hit the key point there, is that I believe you're confusing us with another practice because our practice does not provide any orthodontic services.
Exactly.
And, boom. And there's a reply. Now there's another good technique for replying with negative reviews, and that is to flood the review site with positive reviews.
Yeah. Best defense is the best offense.
Sometimes, exactly. So now we always remember there's a goal. I hope if there was a final exam for our Less Insurance Dependence podcast listeners, there's no exam. I think part of our audience just broke out into a cold sweat. There is no final exam. I'm kidding. But if there was, one of the questions would be, in regards to reviews, Google reviews, what is the goal that we want for each and every one of our listeners? And the answer to that question is, we want you to be the practice that has the highest number of reviews in your community. And you know what, Naren, you and I see this all the time. We see it in our mutual clients, and we see it in audiences in master classes and audiences in our MBA workshop. And doctors will say, God, we were on that for a little while and we were doing really good with reviews. And then we just got distracted on we got distracted by the shiny object syndrome. We started doing other things and our reviews have dropped off. How many times have we heard that, Naren?
We've heard that a lot. And I think one of the things I love about what you do is you talk about certain things in your coaching program, and reviews is something you emphasize. And almost every one of your clients, every single month, they hit the target. You set a target for them on a monthly basis as to how many new reviews they need to get. And I know one particular client, he did 3 times as much as the target.
He was 3x and the target was aggressive. We set the target aggressive, and then he surprised himself when it was actually 3x the target. But my point being here is that maybe that negative review can be a reminder to you to go back and revisit the fundamentals on you always want to be getting reviews.
Yeah.
And so push the negative review down by flooding the review site with more positive reviews. So it's time to double down on our system for getting more positive reviews.
Yeah, two additional points on one is use a tool. We use Grow My Reviews. The second one is respond to reviews, even the positive ones. Like, so what we do for you, Gary, for Life Smiles is within a week or so, somebody in our team responds to every single review coming in. That's positive reviews and negative reviews. Positive reviews, our team will respond because, we don't need your input on it. Negative reviews, we will contact you and say, hey, there's a negative review. How do you want us to handle this?
Yeah. And I know that I really appreciate that as a client of Equa. It's one more thing that's done for us that we don't have to do. Now, granted, when you need our input, we're available for that. But it's one more thing that's done for us in terms of marketing that frees us up to focus on taking the best care of our patients. So it's a great resource. But that's certainly when you get a negative review, it's time to really double down and work extra hard on getting more positive reviews, and then use that as like the new snowball rolling downhill. Keep it going. And the best way to do that, the best way to keep your reviews going is to assign a Google review champion in your practice, a Google review champion. And that's going to be a team member whose job and whose priority is to always be working to get more Google reviews. Now, whoever is our champion, it doesn't mean that she's the one that goes out and gets the reviews. but she is in charge of quarterbacking the system. She's the quarterback. And she's the one that's responsible for keeping it front and center. She's the one that reads positive reviews in the morning huddle. She's the one that looks at the schedule in the day and reminds team members of who might be perfect people to get Google reviews from today. And she's really all about keeping it front and center and keeping it top of mind so we don't get distracted by the shiny object syndrome. And Naren, if you do this over time, we've been doing this podcast now for 2.5 years. 2.5 years. And so look at a 2.5 year window. We've seen practices in my client base go from, say, 30 reviews total when we start. And 2.5 years later, they have 400 reviews. Naren, you know more about marketing than anyone I know on the planet. A dental practice looks different to Google if they have 400 reviews than if they have 30. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Gary. I totally agree. Google looks at how many reviews you have and how frequently you get those reviews. In other words, do you get 10 reviews a week or you get, 1 review in 6 months? The practice that has more reviews and that are getting more frequent reviews now is going to rank higher for most search terms. So not only are you going to influence people more because you have more reviews and more frequent reviews, but also you're going to show up on Google a lot more times. Like you show up more than 100,000 times, and tens of thousands of those times are linked to Google Maps product, which is the product people have on their phones, used by 1 billion people every day. So it's really, really, really important to get a lot of reviews for a lot of reasons.
Here's maybe a way for our listeners to get their arms around this. 5-star Google reviews are a form of currency. Currency. Would you agree with that, Naren? It's like a valuable commodity in the eyes of Google. It's a currency. Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Yeah, and obviously when it comes to currency, the more the better. So you want to be working on this. Well, I think we provided some very useful information about, how to respond to those stray reviews, and then maybe also helping you to provide a perspective to look at it so that you don't feel like emotionally drained when you see that. The problem with feeling emotionally drained, when you're feeling down, it's kind of hard to flip the switch and walk into the next patient and treat the patient the way they deserve to be treated. But try to flip that switch. I know it's not easy to do, but try to flip that switch because your next patient deserves the best version of you. And I want to encourage you to flip that switch. And by the way, if you'd like help with reviews, Naren, you and your team, among the many things that you do for us, you've helped us really master the world of reviews. And I would encourage our listeners to schedule a marketing strategy meeting with you to learn how you can help them not only with reviews, but with a marketing plan to provide our listeners with not only the number of new patients that they need, but the quality of new patients as well. Let's put a link in the show notes. It's in thrivingdentist.com. If you look in the show notes, we'll put a link to the marketing strategy meeting, and I'd encourage you to take advantage of that. That will be time well spent. You'll learn things about your practice, and you'll learn things about marketing, and you'll learn how Google looks at your website, and you'll learn things you didn't already know. It'll be time well spent. On that basis, I want to thank our listeners for the privilege of your time today, and tell you we're going to look forward to connecting with you on the next Less Insurance Dependence podcast. Thanks for joining us today.